The entire ABCD family joins all of Boston in mourning the loss of Irvienne Goldson, a trailblazer, pioneer, and tireless advocate for health in the community. Irvienne joined ABCD in 1992 and rose to become Deputy Director of Health Services. Over the course of 30 years working in the community, Irvienne was a true innovator and constant champion for health education and resources for the most vulnerable, focusing on reproductive health, health equity, HIV and STI testing, empowering young women and girls, and more. Through ABCD programs like Safer is Sexy, Sister to Sister, and Boss Up, as well as her countless collaborations with community partners, she helped thousands. As we celebrate the life of one of Boston's brightest lights, it's time to hear from some of those who she worked with and whose lives she touched.
It was 1992 when I interviewed with Irvienne Goldson, who was interviewing for a community health educator position. At the time, I was still in college, and I was looking for work in the nonprofit sector. And she hired me as a community health worker, and my job was to educate people about HIV and AIDS and healthy relationships. I've learned everything that I know about community engagement through my work with Irvienne. She was the queen of community. She knew how to not only pack a room in, but how to help people bring all of their talents into that space. She believed in me, even when most people wouldn't. And even though she didn't live in Boston, she couldn't vote for me, but she found other ways to support me. And that meant the world, because I started off my career working with her in 1992 at ABCD. And what ABCD is all about is disrupting the cycle of poverty and helping people. And I was a recipient of ABCD. My mom applied for fuel assistance. My little brother went through Head Start. I worked at ABCD. So there's a lot of intersection there with Irvienne and and a lot of the things that I fight for on the councils around poverty.
We lost somebody valuable. Irvienne, she gave the full measure of devotion, trying to help everybody she could in any area that was possible. We do summer programs with kids, youngsters in the city. She was always here. She always had a special program for the kids in health and other things. What she tried to do is fill in for a lot of youngsters parts of life that they needed: sexual education, management, or any topic you can think of. She would try to instill that. You knew that she has done something at 7 a.m. someplace, and maybe 9 the night before, and just got all these things laid up in front of her. She just could pull people together because you knew she had no personal agenda. It was, what can I do today to help these people who need help because they've been left behind? Irvienne, you were wonderful.
When I met Irvienne, I was living in Harbor Point, formerly known as Columbia Point, and what they were doing was interviewing young mothers and trying to figure out something for them to do. Irvienne was one of the co-facilitators. We became friends over the years. She used to come to my cookouts. We would go out, hang out, after work. I knew how important she was and how loved she was, but I didn't realize everyone loved her. She was always constantly working to make things better for other people. I miss going into the office and seeing her texting me on Christmas or my birthday, checking up on me, saying, "How you doing, girl? How you really doing?"
She was a force of nature. Nothing made Irvienne happier than seeing a young girl in her community be able to say, I advocated for myself. I was able to advocate for my own health and wellness. I was able to insist on that we use a condom or we don't do it, or I insisted that we got tested together. There was a period of time where the commission had as one of its overarching goals to reduce chlamydia rates amongst adolescents of color by a third. And over the course of that 5 to 7 year period, it was achieved, actually, which was tremendous. And the work of Irvienne and ABCD played a big part of that.
As a volunteer, I was chairing the Women's Commission in Cambridge, and I'd heard about Irvienne's work with Cambridge Cares, particularly around developing peer education programs. So I said to my boss then, Mary Russell, we need to see if there's some interest that Irvienne may have in joining us. And shortly thereafter, she joined the ABCD family. I think that she felt it was a privilege to be able to do this work, that it wasn't a job. One of her mottos was, what can I do to support you? The support that she gave to colleagues, to folks in the community, that was one of her hallmarks. I'll always remember that, along with her warmth and certainly intelligence and passion, but the passion combined with intelligence and compassion and empathy.
Take the Test Boston was a large-scale HIV testing initiative. What we wanted to accomplish was to raise awareness about the importance of testing for HIV and for STIs, to make that testing accessible to community members through partnerships with small businesses, and having Irvienne's presence at the table as a voice of reason, as a historian, and just as a real calm presence was really important. Irvienne always had this sort of greater reach in terms of bringing in organizations, people. So how we engage the Caribbean community, for example, was something that she was always passionate about. From a public health perspective, we were able to test between 400 and 600 individuals during that week of testing. What I'm going to miss about her personally is I always remember how soft her hands were and how she always took my hand and held my hand for whatever we was going through. Her presence was so rich and it was so nourishing. And she truly, truly, truly cared about young women. She truly cared about Black people, Afro-Latina, Caribbean people. She just cared about our experience. And I just think she felt compelled to always show up.
Someone had said, you were like Irvienne's sidekick. And I'm just like, I actually like that. I actually enjoyed that comparison. Irvienne was well known for like girls empowerment and women empowerment, but she also did men's empowerment as well, which I think is important to highlight. When you reflect upon her impact and work, sometimes I feel like, oh wow, Irvienne did all of these things. Like she was into so many things, affected so many people, but it's that humbleness and humility that made her really approachable.
When I first met Irvienne was in 1999, when I first started working at health services as a peer outreach. She's just a good person, always supportive of people, willing to listen. She'll give you hugs. She was definitely a leader, and she gave me a lot of advice on life, and I will always remember that. She was a beautiful, amazing woman.
Irvienne approached me. We had an internal grant funding mechanism here at Tufts in the School of Medicine through our Clinical Translational Science Institute for academic community partnerships. So I called Irvienne. She's my best community partner in Boston. I said, Irvienne, there's a grant opportunity. What do you think? She was like, yes. And I know exactly what we're going to work on. I was like, all right, what are we going to work on? And she wanted to work on food insecurity in young girls, 18 to 25. And we've been working on it ever since. Both of us were committed to the work. And, you know, for me, it is my honor to continue the work now in her honor. Irvienne was every woman. Like that Shaka Khan song, she was every woman. And I feel her energy so strongly. I feel her connection. So I will always miss her. I will always respect her. I will always love her. And I will always be grateful to her.
She just had a way about her that was charismatic, always positive, someone who really clearly thought about the community first. And she had this beautiful, brilliant smile that came out most, I think, when she was in an environment where she could see that the community was there and that people were participating and people were actually getting something that they needed. And what what was really, really important about Irvienne is she was very comfortable talking about sex. And that was that's one of the things that we need more of in our community. Irvienne was a strong advocate for comprehensive sex education and not being afraid of talking about sex and not feeling stigmatized. She was really very clearly happy to get up and talk about what needed to be talked about if nobody else would.
Well, continue her legacy by keep doing what she was doing, or keep this events going, keep information out.
The best way to honor Irvienne is to continue the work, and not just continue the work, but to, if possible, improve on it. I'm very worried about what our HIV and STI rates are going to look like post-COVID. I think we're going to come out of this and have some scary numbers. And the best way to honor Irvienne, I think, is to roll up our sleeves, get in there and get those numbers back down and drive them back down, because that's all that Irvienne wanted to do.
In the grieving process, I would also like people to remember that, you know, you have pieces of Irvienne in you. You are also that community person. You can also be that person that people can go to for resources. It's important that people know that they can also step up and be that person as well.
On Facebook, you know, we kept seeing a lot of the commentary that was being made, you know, like Irvienne is the queen. We needed to honor her. And I felt that the best way that I could do something as a city councilor was to, you know, dedicate a day to, you know, make this Irvienne Community Health Day, so that on her birthday, we will always do something that celebrates community health, that celebrates Irvienne. And we wrote a resolution and presented it on the council and dedicated January the 14th as Irvienne Goldson Community Health Day. You know, and as long as I'm on the council, that will continue to be the case. And my hope is that we'll continue to uplift her work through community events that we host on her anniversary, because it's the spirit in which we continue to uplift Irvienne's life thereafter that is really going to make this an annual celebration.
They call her Queen Irvienne for a reason, you know? I never knew it was Queen. I always called her Miss Goldson, or my lady, and she knows. Yeah, I never knew why they call her Queen Irvienne, but I see now why.